Hello, everybody. It's me, Ross, and welcome back to another edition of Meet the Opposition. And this week, I'm joined by Dan Jewell from BBC Radio Lancashire to look ahead to Town's clash with Accrington Stanley at Portman Road in League One. Dan, we've already played this season. It was a 2-1 defeat up at the Wham Stadium for Town. Accrington, 5 games unbeaten. They're normally a Town's bogey side. At home, though, for Town, they've got some good wins against Accrington. So this should be an interesting encounter. Paul Cook is no more. So John Coleman and Paul Cook won't be clashing again. But what can we expect from Accrington's side, who are 10th in the league, a point above Town?
Well, I think these two clubs and their two sets of supporters feel the same way about away trips to these respective clubs, because Stanley have got some miserable memories of going to Portman Road, and I'm sure Ipswich have got some pretty miserable memories from coming to the Crown in League and FA Cup. But Accrington are a different proposition now to if Ipswich had been playing them perhaps a month, 6 weeks ago. They were conceding goals in big bundles, 5s and 4s, and there was a particularly dreadful away defeat to Burton Albion, and they were conceding multiple goals, and it was something like 11 goals conceded in 3 successive defeats at one point in December. Things have changed since then. John Coleman, wily old devil that he is, with all the 20 years of experience of managing Accrington Stanley over 2 spells, has just shuffled things around a little bit, and in some cases his hand has been forced due to injury in the COVID situation. Stanley have had 1 game called off due to COVID because of cases in their camp, which was a trip to Wigan, and he's gone to a back 4, and that appears to have done the trick. And they kept as many clean sheets in the last 4 or 5 games as they kept in the previous 18 games. You mentioned that unbeaten run. 3 of those games have been draws of the 5, but the mitigating circumstances are 2 of those 3 games have been with 10 men. With 10 men against MK Dons and with 10 men at home to Sunderland last weekend. The Sunderland one is particularly noteworthy because with 10 men, they still had a right go. And Sunderland had 2 shots on target in the entire game. And Stanley probably in the second period had more of the attacking threat with the numerical disadvantage. So if it's a roller coaster and we've got peaks and troughs on it, Stanley are on an upslope at the moment, having been down in one of those troughs, where you can't feel your stomach after getting to the bottom of the Big Dipper. But pretty encouraging times. And John Coleman's been talking this week about there being a feel-good factor around the place. And they'll be hoping to go to Ipswich and try and capitalise on that.
Yeah, I've still got bad memories of that FA Cup clash against Accrington a few years ago. And I saw you guys lost 5-1 against Port Vale. And as you said, you conceded goals. But as it seems, you've been shoring out the defence. And one man who's going to be missing in the defence is Ross Sykes, of course, got sent off in that Sunderland draw. Is he going to be a big miss? And should Town fans be happy that he's not going to be there?
Oh, without a question, he'll be a miss. He's only a young man, but he's got a wealth of experience because he started playing for Stanley's first team when he was 17, 18 years old. He's come through the ranks from being about 14 when he was released by Burnley just up the road. And he is sort of wise and experienced beyond his years. Having said that, he got sent off for 2 silly yellow cards in the game against Sunderland. So he hasn't learned it all. There'll be a big game and a big performance required from J. Rich Bagley, who only signed on the Friday before the Sunderland game on a permanent deal from Crystal Palace, which is a surprising thing for Accrington Stanley to do, certainly historically. But they have made a couple of permanent signings with the money that they got for Dion Charles, who's gone to Bolton Wanderers. So I would imagine Bagley will slot in at the heart of the defence alongside the vastly experienced Michael Nottingham, who I think the statistic is that he had more minutes on the pitch in 2021 than any other player in the Football League. So that's the level of experience we're talking about there. And we mentioned the switch to a back 4. Full-backs, there isn't actually a recognised left-back at the club, but Yeboah Amankwa on loan from Manchester City has done a really good job filling in that left flank. And Mitch Clark playing right-back was in the deep freeze. He was nowhere near the team, and he's played the last 3 or 4 games, been terrific, scored his first goal for the club at the weekend as well, which helps.
Yeah, I just put the team below, and 4-3-3. Colby Bishop is another man that stands out. He scored one of the goals against Town early in the season. Of course, Harry Pell, he knows this neck of the woods very well. He's at Colchester for a while. How have they played since that game? I'm sure Colby Bishop's he's now lost his strike partner in Dion Charles, but he'll still be the main man up front.
Yeah, well, this is the tactical change that John Coleman's made. Bishop will now play down the middle, and he'll have O'Sullivan and McConville either side of him, with one of the 3 midfield players joining him from deep. And it could be Pell, it could be Butcher, it could be Hamilton at any given stage. Bishop's a mainstay. He's the absolute axis that the team goes round. You alluded to that FA Cup defeat at Port Vale. he got sent off in that game, missed 3 games in the league as a result, and Stanley lost all 3 of them. They don't really have a viable alternative at centre forward. There's moves to get into the transfer market to try and loan a forward player or maybe even bring one in permanently. But at the moment, Colby Bishop is integral. He's in double figures for the 3rd successive season in the Football League, which for a player that came from the National League North not that long ago is quite an achievement. But he's not really about his goals. He holds the ball up, he brings other people into play. And almost as much as that, Ross, he diverts attention away from other players. So if you're busy battling with Colby Bishop, it opens up a window for one of those midfield players or one of the wide players. Harry Pell's been interesting because at times he's been absolutely integral to Stanley this season, but he did have a little spell out of the team. Before the last couple of games, he's come back in there because there were a raft of midfield injuries and he had to bide his time and has come back in. But again, we talked about experience before. He has that experience and he has a little bit of something about him that he shares with Sean McConville, where he can divert attention away from the crowd. He can do those little things, winning cheap free kicks, wasting a bit of time, kicking the ball over the stand roof, much to Sam Morse's annoyance. That kind of thing can sometimes provide those little bits of breaking up play and those little marginal gains that they talk about in other sports. And I think if Harry Pell plays well, Stanley generally play well.
Yeah, I'm sure Town fans will be on Harry Pell's back from the minute go, because
and he'll love it, by the way.
Yeah, of course he will. He loves that sort of thing. I want to quickly mention, Accrington Stanley, they haven't had many away games. They've only had one in the last 2 months or so. Is Accrington's form currently away from home? I know it's been a while, but yeah, it's an interesting one. You look at the fixtures, and yeah, they've only had one. They had the Shrewsbury game before the new year. But since then, they've just it's been back-to-back home games, and it's all been at home.
You mentioned that Shrewsbury game. That's when the COVID problems really hit, and they had a very patched up team, and it was a very creditable draw considering the under-23s team was basically called into service with some of the senior players around them. They then subsequently should have been at Wigan the following weekend, and that game was postponed because of those COVID cases. It's a little bit difficult to tell because, as you say, it's so long since they've actually played an away game. The home form has certainly been the sort of fulcrum of the season, and they're making it a difficult place for teams to go again. Away from home, it's been a little bit hit and miss. There've been some good performances away, and they've perhaps not got what they deserve from some of those performances. But I've alluded to it already. There's a couple of absolute shockers in there as well. There've been some really poor performances away from home. Burton in the league was particularly bad. That Port Vale FA Cup game was pretty poor. And I think it depends on the way that the game pans out, because sometimes it can suit Stanley because they like to attack teams and they like to go for it. And traditionally over the years, John Coleman teams have done well away at big clubs, but it's that old silence the crowd cliche. If you can silence the crowd by playing well for the first 15, 20 minutes, or better still, get the crowd on the home team's case because you've frustrated them, then you stand every chance. Stanley's record when they concede first is not great. They've only not lost, I think, 4 times this season when they've conceded first. Conversely, when they've scored first, they've won all bar one game where they've scored first. So that first goal in any game is proving to be crucial at the minute.
Definitely. And this will be our first home game of 2022. This is your first away game of 2022. So both sides will want to get that up and running. What are you reckoning then? What's your prediction? How you feel this game's going to go?
Well, I know John Coleman feels that Ipswich have got the best squad in the division. He's on the record of saying that, and obviously he's kept a keen eye on what they've been doing because of his friendship with Paul Cook, and obviously Cookie has now departed the premises and Kieran McKenna's come in. I think his expectation is that Ipswich will be higher up the league come the end of the season than they are at the moment. The two teams are right on top of each other in that league table. I think Stanley will expect a response after that defeat for Ipswich at Bolton last time out. But I also think that Accrington are much harder to beat than they were a few weeks ago. With my optimistic hat on, I would say that Accrington are more than capable of getting a point and continuing this unbeaten run if they can do the things that they're good at to the best of their abilities. I think if Ipswich show the potential that they've got and use the quality that they've got at their disposal, the bookmakers have got 3 windows for paying in and 1 for paying out for a reason, haven't they? And Ipswich will be huge favourites because of the stature of the clubs, because they won't look at the league table and they won't look at the recent form. They'll look at the size of the clubs and the squads and the players that are in there. So Ipswich will be favourites, but I would hope that supporters will know enough about League One and enough about Stanley by now to know that it won't be a surprise if they go there and get a point or get a win even.
Yeah, it's a long trip for yourself and the Accrington fans. I'm sure you're not looking forward to that on Saturday morning, but have you enjoyed your trips to Portman Road in the last few years? I know the results haven't been great, but it's another ground to tick off the list. Of course, Portman Road. It will be a decent crowd once again.
Yeah, I've been a few times to Portman Road watching different teams over the years. Watching Stanley, though, obviously the results have been pretty poor. Sometimes we say that a nice day out sometimes spoiled by the football. And I never take for granted the fact that we're being paid to be there. And I always think of there won't be many of them travelling down from Accrington making that long trip, but all of them are paying and all of them have not made a trip for a while, as you alluded to earlier. So they'll try and make a day out of it. The one thing that I will guarantee is that whether there's 70, 100, 150 of them, you'll be able to hear them because they're a noisy bunch and they make themselves heard and they make their presence felt. And they're the guys who are the real heroes. We're just kind of getting in the car and schlepping up and down the motorway and earning a few coins. So I'll never complain about the trips because we're in a really fortunate position.
Definitely, Dan. Well, thank you very much for joining me. Safe journey down to yourself and all the Accrington Stanley fans. Get involved in the comments down below, your thoughts, your predictions, and we'll still see how this goes. Once again, stay in touch and we'll speak again very soon. Bye-bye for now.